Welcome back to another episode of the Real Table Podcast with your boy Michael Carter, and it is good to be back. We had some recording issues to start, and so we are pumped. Oh shoot, is it working? Am I still on? Yeah, I'm still on. All right, bet. Yeah, bet. All right, bet. Yeah, we had some recording issues early on, so we had to do this. This is the third time, but hey, we here, and we about to talk the next episode of The Penguin, man. The next episode, and this might be the most intense episode of the season. Could be, possibly. It's up there. At least it's up there. Who want to jump in first? Whoever want to jump in first, go for it.
I mean, I would say I think it's my favorite episode thus far of the season.
Yeah.
I feel like they just keep getting better, and I don't know, man. This I feel like I keep saying this, but this show has just been a masterclass on how to do comic book TV shows. They moved the story along. They didn't dwell too much. Like, there was even a little time skip, which I thought was perfect to kind of move the story to where we needed to get it.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It was a great episode for me. I had a lot of fun watching it, and I feel like it answered a whole bunch of questions that we had like initially when we first started this series.
Okay. Josiah?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think some of the questions, like what we talked about a couple episodes ago, is with the time skip. It was snowing. It was snowing in this episode, so we're definitely in the November, late November area. So really solid episode. A lot happened. A lot of stuff that I didn't expect. A lot of great character work as well. A lot of great character moments.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 2 episodes left. Man, I can't wait. I can't wait.
2 episodes left. And you know it too, when with these shows, with the whether it's like 6 episodes or 8 episodes, or even like with the longer shows like back in the day, when you starting to get to that finale, when you're starting to get there, story starts to ramp up, things start happening, and that's what we see in this episode. Like, things are starting to happen, and it's getting really tight. My boy Oz, it's getting real tight, man.
Very sticky.
So yeah, very sticky. So like the last episode, which was Homecoming episode 5, we saw Sophia kill basically her whole family, and she's taking on this new name, the Gigantes, and which basically starts a new era in this new war that we're having, right? And she's gotten together with not Falcone. What's the other
Maroni?
Yeah, the Maronis
Sal.
got together with Sal, and like that's how you know like stuff is about to start happening. But when we start in this episode, like stuff is going, like they're moving Bliss, and they've distributed. It feels like this takes place. It feels like they kind of moved the timeline a little bit, because they're moving production of that drug Bliss, and there's a lot of it, and they've got a lot of help, a lot of workers and stuff moving in that underground sewer, and it's just the business is booming. And then you go over to Sophia and Sal. It's like Sophia's looking for Oz, but she can't find that dude. Like, he's in the wind. They can't find none of his people. Like, they're moving Bliss like it's like clockwork. It's crazy. What did y'all think about that? Like, there's clearly like a little bit of a jump of time, maybe a week or 2 or something like that. What y'all think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. I mean, it kind of shows that this isn't like sometimes with shows and things, stuff like it happens way too fast or happens in a week. It's like, all right, so much has happened. Like the Batman in a week, I could see that happening. Riddler planning stuff out. But with stuff like this, it's not going to be like a quick thing. So I'm glad they're taking their time. And then of course you do need that time jump to move things along. So yeah, I thought it was a good time jump.
I like how this like what I've realized about this show is even when it's like kind of showing all sides of like the main characters, meaning Sophia and Oz, whoever the show starts off with, you know they're going to be like featured in the show. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, this episode we see Vic pulling up on the motorcycle, and although it wasn't like a Vic centered episode, I
Yeah.
mean the whole thing with, I mean he had a big character, plot change in him that happened this episode. Like he was featured in it. So I kind of like I kind of noticed that, just like, okay, if the show starts off with this character, I should probably peep what's going on with this character because he's going to be important to this episode, even if it's not centered around him. So I think with the time skip, even seeing how he got some J's now, I'm like, oh, he pulling up with some J's?
Looking clean,
like,
looking clean.
Okay, like,
Yeah.
yeah, he was looking clean. I'm
Squid
like,
was like, "Hey, bro, where you get them from?" He's like, "Nah, these fake." He's like, "Ah,
nah,
they
them not
ain't fake."
Real.
And I don't know, man. I think it's like I said earlier, I really like Vic's character. So seeing him come up, I was like, okay, cool. This is gonna be like kind of like a Vic episode. And then the
Yep.
whole thing with Squid, it's like, whoa, that's like a big, important, like, this is where your character could have gone left or right, and you decided to hit this left. So now we got to see how that takes a
Yeah.
toll on you. You know what I mean? Because for me personally, he didn't have to kill Squid. He
Right.
didn't. It was so like,
Yeah.
just the scene. It was super tense, and like and it was so well done. You know what I'm saying? Like, shout out to the director, shout out to the producer, like shout out to everybody there, because it was so well done to the point where I forgot Vic even had that gun, bro. He's had that gun since the jump of this season, and like he's never really had to use it. So when he pulls back up on Squid, I'm like, all right, he's gonna be like, you know what? Let me just cut ties with you. I'm doing my own thing. You stay here. Like, I no longer need you. You used to, I used to be terrified of you, but it's no longer that. And then he just turns around and just pulls the gun out. And I was like, bro, I was honestly shocked. Like, for that to happen kind of early in the episode, I was like, or maybe halfway. I don't know how far. I might have skipped a little bit, but it was really shocking for me. It showed, I was like, oh, okay, this show is going back to dark. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes there's like a lot of goofy moments. There's a lot of cartoon. Even the music sometimes, it makes it a little jovial.
Yeah.
That scene, man, that was real heavy for me. I was like, dang, this is gonna be a big impact on him. And you could tell.
Because it's funny that when we were waiting for Mike to get back on, that you mentioned Game of Thrones, because that's kind of what I wanted. Was Vic, like, he kept trying to tell Squid, like, no, dude, you don't want to meet Oz, and he's like, no, I want to. So I was wanting Vic to bring Squid to Oz, and then Squid finding out like how big of a mistake that was to want to meet him.
Yeah.
Because he's like, Oz is like, hey, I'm here now, like, what's what? And then that happening. But with what you said, the way it went left, where Victor was handling it, I was like, man. And then they hit that line that he said, his inner channel and his inner Omni-Man, he's like, why did you make me do that? And I'm like, he didn't make you do that. You still you could have let Oz handle it himself.
Yeah.
But you chose to go that route. And I was like, and then the whole thing with Oz saying, hey man, it gets easier. Like, you did a good thing. I was like, no, like, it was nice. It was a nice moment between those two, but I was like, that's not exactly, the kind of thing that a young man like that needs to be told, Yep.
It's like you want to root for them, but you realize, like, okay, they're still villains at the end of the day.
Yep.
Like, these are still like dark characters.
Yeah.
And although we have seen the human side to them, it's like their goals are still not necessarily what we would consider moral. You know what I'm saying? So,
and I think that hits to your point when you and I were texting Mike about, you want to root for him, but like it's conflicting because he's bad. But it's like when my mother-in-law asked me, like, where's Batman and all this, and it's like, on one hand, yes, the whole city was affected, and he's got other things to do. But the other issue is, I would say that an argument you can make on why Batman hasn't done anything yet or intervened is because, and it hasn't hit with Oz how bad he is, because everybody in that world, everybody around Oz is a bad person. Like, nobody really cares that much when gangs like blow each other up and kill each other, because that's just what they do. It's only when it starts affecting innocent people that things start to happen. And so far,
Good
I don't
point.
think a single innocent person has died in this show yet. And so I think until it switches back to Batman and the Batman part 2, that it will really hit just how bad like Oz really is, and how bad like all this is for the city. Because I mean, I would even say Eve and Roxy and some of the girls are kind of bad because they were still in the club pushing those drugs on the floor, spreading them around. So it's just like everybody in the show is kind of a scumbag, and that's why it doesn't really feel like Oz is all that bad, even though we know he is, because it's just, okay, Mrs. Maroney and her son, they probably weren't like the nicest people either, you know what I mean? You know, it's a dark show, and
definitely not.
You know, everybody's just kind of bad, and even you know, at the end when what was that? The triad guy was like, "Hey guys, you know, Oz, he lies, he'll stab you in the back, he'll do all this stuff," and then I'm like, okay, but everybody here hates each other. You probably all have done that to everybody else. So
we all suck.
And they're like, all right. Then that's why Danny's like, all right, like popping the can, like I'm with you, Oz, you know?
Yeah, no, that moment, man, it's pivotal. We talked about it because we were like, eventually he's gonna have to come face to face with Squid and all that stuff, and it's like, okay, when it happens, what's gonna happen? Like, are we gonna see some action, or is it gonna be cordial, or it's gonna be, you know, Squid's like, hey, I want to work with y'all, you know, I want to help, I want to be in on it, and it could be like a partnership. So like it can go multiple ways, and I think it's very interesting that they chose this way, and I think it's good for his character because he is young and he's fresh into this whole little world, and it gives his character, this is like a, you know, a pivotal turning point for him as who he is, because now it's like there's no I feel like there's no turning back now. Like he's made his
California's
path.
looking real nice.
He's made his bed and he's decided what he wants to do, and I think how this affects him in the next couple episodes is going to be really interesting to see. But
I think it's also interesting how all this works, because Squid, I felt like he was playing with him early on. Because when he confronts him the second time, he says, "Oh, because you're working with Oz. What's his name? The Wizard of Oz." So it's like, even though Squid is on the lowest level in Crown Point, just like a local guy, he still knows about Oz. He still knows about the Maronis. He's like, when he says like, it sounds like some heavy hitters are looking for him. So it's like he still hears things in this world. He's like, I'm way over here. I'm like the bottom of the totem pole, but I still get wind of all this stuff that's happening. So the fact that he knew that's who Vic was working with, and he didn't say that at first, I'm like, man, you know, that's, you know, he's sneaky.
He's very sneaky. Because he, like you said, he didn't say that at first. It was like, oh, he has no idea who he's working with. But like, nah, he knew who he was working with. He was just, you know, being the squid, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was when he saw, what was that? I don't remember if it was episode 4 or 5, but when Squid kind of peeped that Vic was helping Oz's mom into like the door, and he was like, who is that? And I think that's when he realized, like, oh, okay, so this kid is still around, and why hasn't he been rocking with me? So in the background, he probably did his homework, you know, and during this time skip, he probably found out who that was, but still doesn't have like any concrete information. So, you know, it was just like, oh, okay, so Squid's kind of still like around, and he still wants to have this control, but knows that Vic's kind of doing his own thing, and it was just like interesting when they had that back alley meetup. But speaking of sneaky, man, talk about Sophia and her little boy toy. They over here speaking, not so much, I guess, but
that relationship makes me very uncomfortable.
It's so weird to me. I don't like that dude.
Because I heard somebody trying to say a theory that like he was a figment of her imagination. I'm like, there ain't no way, dude. Like, he's clearly a real guy.
Yes,
you know?
He's a real guy. And
I was like, there's just no way. Like, you know, it was just, I don't know. I don't know what was going on there. I don't know if I want to know.
No way. I don't want to know, bro. I'm like,
they left it up to the imagination, and that's all I needed.
Yep. I'm like, what does this do, bro?
But it was just so like strange because like, so whatever, we see Sophia and what's his name, Julius?
Yeah, Julian.
And then she closes the door and she turns around and it's just Sal. I'm like, wait, so y'all all hanging out at the same
same place?
like,
So
It's a big house.
Sal
It's a
hears
big
some
house,
stuff.
man.
Yes.
Sal hearing some stuff down the hall.
Yeah, no, ain't no way Sal's just there. Mr.
Man.
Sal, he's over here, no family, just over here, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, cooking it up. I said, okay,
But it was cool. Like, I was actually listening to like another like show that recaps it, and they kind of highlighted that this was like a bigger scene than I originally thought when I first saw it, just because it kind of showed that Sophia doesn't really trust anyone, but here she is with the two men that she could potentially trust.
Yeah.
Julian and Sal, and they're like two different types of, Sal's more so like that older figure, that father figure, and Julian's more of like, he could be my confidant, he could be my boyfriend, but I'm also just leaving him like at a little arm's distance because I don't fully trust him yet.
No.
Yeah.
So like showing that dichotomy of like, I don't really trust men, but here I am with Sal, who I'm kind of leaning on, and here I am with this guy who was at Arkham, and I don't really trust him, but I need to like have him at his arm's length because you know what I'm saying, I could probably have him do my bidding.
The implications of that later on in the episode, the way you said how big of a scene that was, is because when Sophia talks to Eve and she was like, oh, your people protected you. She's like, that's more than I'll ever have. That's more than I had from the people, like the family I was born into. And the fact that she kind of lets her go, like she just level said, hey, once again, a man hurt you. Like Oz didn't tell you that I'm not the hangman. He didn't tell you all these things. So you're just a victim like I was. Because she did, nobody knows how long Oz and Eve are actually together. It could have been those 10 years, but the fact that she recognizes, like, like you're kind of questioning, like, I guess I can't trust anyone, like especially men, but these are two guys that I do have, and I gotta trust them somehow. And
that was crazy to see, like that Eve. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting her to like talk.
I mean, I don't know. I thought it was interesting though. It was, and I do kind of like what I was saying, how they did seem to kind of have some mutual understanding. And she was like, the whole time she's like, "Oh, Oz didn't tell me," and then she was like, "You deserve your shot." I was like, "Well, I guess I can't blame her," but the fact that she just like Crown Point, I was like, "Oh, dang, she actually said it,"
Right? She's literally about to
like, also
walk out.
Don't let him know, in case he gets away.
Right.
Just don't tell him that I told you, because else,
I wonder though, like even if he doesn't, like if she doesn't tell him, I wonder if he can make a process of elimination out. Like
he has to
go
because because even Vic, when he first started pulling up with Vic, like, hey, take care of my mom. He was like, oh, you stay over here. Like I don't think anybody. And again, when you think about it, Oz doesn't really have friends. You know what I'm saying? It's people he works for, people he works, technically against, or Vic at this point. There's no like friends in this business. So for Eve to be the only one that kind of knows this shows how much he trusted her enough to, at least let her know about the Crown Point house. And and initially when she said Crown Point, I didn't even think that it was the mom's house. I was thinking it was more so his hideout. So, that was just, I don't know, man. This show really just surprised me like 3 or 4 different times. And it's like, it's really hard for a show to do that to me. You know what I mean? Especially when we're this deep into the season, you can kind of follow along. But this show, it had like 2-3 turns this episode where I'm like, yo, dang, dog, what?
Because like when you said like Oz doesn't have friends, speaking of turns, I honestly thought that he like poisoned the beers. And so I thought when he was like pretending to host, I was expecting all of them to open up and take a sip, and then they all would just like die right there. It's like, all right, I'm taking it all, but the fact they didn't do that, like these twists and turns, I'm like, oh, he actually is going to try to like work with them for now, because I do expect him to try to. Well, okay, if he's trying to be the new kingpin, that's, or like like the mobs and families, that's kind of how it works. Where it's like there's multiple families, and there's like the kingpin is like the head. So I was like, okay, I could see why he didn't kill him, but I was just expecting him to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Oz knows he needs people working under him in order to have this empire that he wants.
Yes.
And he also knows that there's probably half of the Gotham that trusts him and half that don't.
Yeah.
So for this was like, look, bro, we all have been at each other's throats for years now. But at the end of the day, you know, the Maronis are gone. The Falcones are gone. There's just Sophia, who's trying to start her own little family, and us, who've kind of been at war with each other, but now we're all at a space where we can kind of coexist. And so it was smart for
But
him to
again,
do
that's
that
that
for
silver
me.
tongue coming in, you know?
Oh yeah, he was finessing for sure. He was talking a
mean,
whole lot of
yeah.
good stuff.
I was like,
He was
you
talking
know,
a whole
it's like,
lot of
come
good
on.
stuff. Because you still
Mhm.
have to convince everyone that, hey, remember, I stabbed you in the back, but this time I won't. You know, it was one of those
It's like,
type
dude.
speeches.
And it again throughout the show, you know, Johnny said it, you know, Mrs. Maroney said it, and now the Try
Mhm.
Guy's like, yo guys, this is Oz. He's the one who's been this whole time, like ever since we all know who this is. It's like, okay, yeah, I did it. Okay, and I'm like, bro, you can't just say that. He's like, so what? But I got a code. I was like, okay, you're still trying to grasp
Yep.
some sort of honor to let them know that you're not going to definitely stab them in the back as soon as you get what you want.
Right.
But you
There's
know,
no honor among thieves, man.
exactly.
Let's
And then the fact that Try Guy still went with it, I'm like, dude. Honestly, I think part of it was I was thinking that he wasn't going to do it, and then they were just going to pop him right there for not going along with it. But it seemed at the end he was kind of convinced. He's like, all right, you know, you're making sense. I'm like, yes, come on.
let's talk about up until that moment, like, because remember when they were moving Bliss around the streets,
Mm-hmm.
Sophia couldn't get to any of his guys, or couldn't find him, and so they start killing the different men from the different gangs, which starts this whole thing where Oz is like, okay, like what are we gonna do? She's popping people and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then he comes up with this whole elaborate idea of like, let's just give it away for free. Let's just
Everywhere.
put it everywhere, everywhere. And that creates this whole thing where everybody's like, hey, what are you doing? Hey, you're doing it. He's like, hey, let's talk about this. Let's meet up and let's discuss this. Let's discuss
Mhm.
all this stuff. And then he gets them all together. Now that we see, like, we saw how all this played out, and then we see how it ends. I thought this moment, I didn't expect the episode to end the way it did. I expected with this meetup, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, this is pushing Oz to where he wants to be, and he's about to really gain an upper hand over Sophia. But homegirl arrives at Crown Point just waiting in the door, which, by the way, I felt it. You always feel it in different episodes or movies. You feel when something isn't right, and something wasn't right, and I'm like, oh boy, what's going on? Oh boy, what's
So I
going
want
on?
to ask y'all. I want to ask y'all about that because
Yeah.
in that, are we talking about the final scene? Or
When
are we
she
kind of
shows
just
up
talking
at
about
Crown
the lead
Point.
up? Yeah, when she
Is that what
shows
you're
up.
talking about?
Let's get into it. Yeah.
So in that scene, you know, Vic enters first and he's talking to Oz's mom. And there's a point where there's like a noise in the background. Like it sounds like somebody opened a door
Yep,
or like,
that's it. Yep.
Did y'all hear that?
Yep. That's how I knew.
I heard somebody say something about that earlier. I missed it. I would have to go back and rewatch it, but I think I've heard somebody else say that.
Yep.
Cause bro. All right, so two things. And this is why I'd be like, man, Vic, man, I like you, but you're
Slipping.
not him yet.
He's slipping.
He's slipping. So there was the one time where he like was supposed to be protecting Oz's mom. I don't know if it was episode 4 or 5. I can't remember. But like he like falls asleep and then Oz
Right.
comes back and he's like, oh yeah, what's up? And Oz is like, all right, whatever. And this is the second time where he's just not being observant and some, you know, like this is, if I heard it and I'm watching TV and you in the house and you ain't hear it, that just means you're not being observant. And I was just like, this could hurt. Like, I don't want to say Oz is going to be one of those guys that just wastes his guys, but we've kind of seen it where Oz just has this temper, and the only thing that he loves is his mom.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, only things in the world that he loves is his mom. And now we're at a crossroad. Well, I mean, we had a cliffhanger. We don't know what's going to happen, but we can assume that Mama don't make it out season 1.
Yeah.
You know?
But
No way.
I feel like going back to the squid thing, it could go either way because his mom's already talking like, "Hey, it's getting worse. It ain't gonna get better. I'm
That's
gonna need you
true.
to take me out."
That's
And
true.
so he's like, he really doesn't want to do it. He loves his mom. And then if she gets taken, he might just say, "Hey, I don't have to put my mom out myself. She's
Yeah.
already potentially being taken out. So now I got no strings attached because this is what she wanted anyway, potentially." So he might be like, "Go ahead and do it." So then now it's just like the gloves are off. You know what I mean? He
Mm.
doesn't have that thing being held over him anymore. Potentially. I think like you said, he loves his mom too much, but I feel like it could do a way where he could just say, "Hey, my mom wanted to go out anyway," or she might say, "Hey, Oz, remember what we talked about? Like, it's okay. This is what I want." And then he can just go off the walls from there.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, but like, and just because, in a lot of the shows I watch, whenever that bad guy or that villain just has that one, call it like earthly or like moral attachment that just keeps them from slipping off the deep end and becoming like totally maniacal.
Yeah.
Right now, that's Oz's mom. Even when Oz's mom was like, "Yo, you might have to like, I might just have to go." He's like, "Mom, why you saying that? Like, what you mean? Nah, like I love you. Like, nah, like I need you here with me." You could tell in that moment he was being vulnerable. He was like, yeah, he said, "Okay, Ma, if it comes down to it, I'll do it." But I think he was lying, bro. Like from what I've seen over this season, he loves his mom. Like that is his one That's his one attachment to this world, bro.
I mean,
He's doing
he
everything for
did
his
say to
mom.
Vic when he wanted Vic to stay behind and watch his mom. He's like, "That's my mom. She's the only thing that keeps me good."
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
did say that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think you're probably right. I'm just saying
And
potentially it could just go the other way.
and then knowing how Sophia got treated by Oz, I don't think she might turn to the hangman for real this
Oh,
time.
she
You
done.
know what I'm saying? Like
It's done.
you know what I'm saying?
It's
That whole
done.
"I'm not the hangman. I'm not the hangman." I think season 8 we might have that
Huh.
maybe I am the hangman type
Ooh.
line coming up
Maybe.
because now she's
Hmm.
like we've had this time skip. She's been searching for Oz. She feels like she's been betrayed. Her whole family's gone. She doesn't really have people following her. So
Right.
she's desperate, bro. She ain't got much to lose at this point.
No, nothing.
So I'm looking at Sophia like, you found Mama, bro.
Dude.
That I I hope they start off like just how they
Because
ended on
I
season.
think do you guys
episode
watch like
6.
the previews for the next episode?
Oh yeah,
No,
I do.
I can't.
Oh, you
Okay,
can't.
I won't say something.
I like watching.
Never mind.
I mean, you can. It won't really affect me.
Okay,
But if I can, I like going in blind.
Because in the preview for the next episode, Oz goes home and he doesn't find his mom or Vic. But
about to
then
get real.
Sal's already there. Sal's there too. So it's like I don't think. Yes, okay. I think Vic could totally take Sophia by himself, probably. But she probably wouldn't show up to take Oz in by herself. So I think maybe it's not so much that Vic wasn't being vigilant. It's just that there's too many people for him to. Because Sal's a big dude. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I guess I've seen him before, but Clancy Brown, like he's a big guy. So I'm like, So it's like it probably is just one of those situations where unfortunately there's nothing Vic could do because it's Sophia and Sal and like some of their other guys.
Yeah.
So it's because I mean Sal was mad earlier in the episode. He's like he takes all this stuff and he has nothing, and then they find out the
Right.
one thing he does have, his mom, that he was lying about to hide.
Mhm.
Oh, I don't know. It's
about
I
to
don't
get
know.
crazy. It's like it really is about to get crazy.
Yeah.
I really don't know if she comes back. Rest in peace, Ma. She don't. I don't think she can come back, man. Sophia's hungry. She's angry. That boy lied to me multiple times.
Multiple times.
I think it really might be over for her.
Because then she tried to go through Eve already, and then Eve was like, didn't really have anything for her. She's like, okay, well, at least I found Oz, and then finding out that he actually does have one thing, and the one thing he has left in his world is his mom. So like, all right, this is the one thing that we can use to hurt him,
That's why I think
man.
That's why I think she was like she had that face because I think when she pulled up to Crown Point, she thought she was going to find Oz. So when she finds Vic dancing with the mom, which earlier in the episode she had already said Oz's mom is dead. You know what I mean?
She saw the picture.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when she
yes.
sees her, she's like,
Oh,
wait, what?
what?
Like, I think like have y'all seen Despicable Me?
Oh yeah.
I
You
have
know when
not.
okay, well, Gru, whenever he gets an idea, Steve Carell, he's always like, light bulb. And I think at that moment, Sophia had a light bulb moment, like, oh, okay, I know exactly what I got to do now. Yeah.
She had a crowbar in her hand.
Yeah.
I said, whoa, she
I
about to
mean,
get
she
busy.
definitely. I mean, if she did show up by herself, it's like a crowbar wouldn't be enough to take down Oz. If like, dude, you need
Right.
more than just a
No,
crowbar.
right.
'Cause Oz is a big guy too. You know. I mean,
I don't know.
You
You
know.
hit that. You hit that little. You hit the wrong leg. He might have to.
yeah.
He
Oh,
might
I
not
don't
be
know,
able to get
man.
up.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that is
Might
true.
need that life alert. So who knows?
So, did you guys have like a favorite moment in this episode?
That's tough.
Because I know for me, it's where Oz has that big villain moment. You know, like in The Dark Knight Rises, where Bane was like, "Oh, do you feel in charge?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He had that moment because I love the part where he goes to see that councilman guy, and he's like, "Hey, I paid my debts." He's like, "Yeah, to Carmine, but not to me." I said, "Oh snap,
dude.
here we go." And then
I
he says,
forgot about
"Oh,
that.
my name's Oz Cobb." You know, he's like, "And next time you won't forget." He's like, "I'm not some driver. Next time you won't forget." I was like,
Yeah.
"He's, you know,
It's the
he's
start. It's the
this is real
start.
now, man."
It's the start. It
Yeah.
really is the start.
And that's the last thing you want to hear. Yeah, to Carmine. Carmine said, "Yeah, you paid your debt to him, but not to me." You know, I'm like, man,
I think
he's going in.
I think I like the scene where he meeting up with all the gangs and he's giving like
Okay.
a huge monologue. I like that scene. I think there's a lot of award worthy moments for Colin Farrell and like a lot of this cast. Like there's a lot of just award worthy moments, and I think that one is up there where whether he's giving us the truth or not about how he really feels, which is probably more so not. I just feel like he's given us, like Colin Farrell's giving us something really good in that moment. That just feels like you want to believe, like that's where it's going to be going. That we're uniting and we're gonna take back these streets and all this stuff. So I like that moment, even though there was a lot of really good moments in this episode, but that for me, I think that was a good moment.
I like both of y'all moments, to be honest, but to switch it to Sophia, that Sophia Eve, that conversation, that scene was crazy to me, man.
Yes.
It was just so well done on both parts. Like both actresses just bodied that. She was like, "Oh yeah, I told our girl to let you up.
Yep.
If this is it, this is going to be it."
Right.
You
She's
know?
ready.
Like,
And that
you
was
know,
actually
she
the
was
first
ready.
time we saw the inside of Eve's apartment, because every time she only cracks open the door when Oz shows, and this time she opens the door wide and you're going through the whole thing.
That's a good analysis. That's good.
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
I
That's a
just
good
realized
point.
that it's like she's the most vulnerable, and you actually see the inside of her house at this point.
It's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, that scene, it was just so powerful to me too, because like you think Sophia's gonna kill her, and like you see, even in this scene, she's like, "Oh, Oz didn't tell you I'm not the hangman," and you can see Eve kind of still apprehensive, like, "Nah, you crazy girl."
Right.
Like,
I think she was
crazy.
until she said, "No, my father killed those women and my mom." So then so it's like,
yeah.
you wouldn't just lie and say your mom like that. So she's like, "Oh, my own mom was killed by this guy who was my dad. I didn't kill those girls." So then Eve is probably like, "Oh wow, like I didn't know that." She's just being real and honest about that. And that connection, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of good. I mean, this episode killed it, man. It's definitely my favorite, like I said earlier. But it was just so many good scenes, so many good plot twists, so many good characters like having to develop in major ways. You know, it was really good. What, 50, 60 minutes?
Yeah, 60 minutes. I want to say. Yep. Man, we got 2 episodes left. Like now that we've seen what we've seen from this episode, we've got Top Hat. It's the next one, and then we got Great or Little Thing. What are y'all expecting from these next 2 episodes? Now that we've seen.
Wait, the next episode's called Top Hat?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's tough. You know, Penguin iconic with the top hat.
Yeah.
That's
But,
crazy.
real quick, I do want to say, Mike, I did say this in our text conversation. So last episode, you asked me how much percent I, think we could see the Batman. But one thing, Corn, like I was talking to Mike about, and I did think after, um, going back to talking to my mother-in-law, is that I feel like if anything, they could have at least had the bat signal shine in the sky several times throughout the show. Because I was rewatching clips from the trailer, and it was like the line where Batman was like, when that light shines in the sky, it's not just a call, but it's a warning. And I'm like, okay, you still could have had like at least the warning of the Batman out there. It's like all these guys making these moves, and look and say, oh, Batman's still out there. So alluding to the fact that we're going to have a confrontation with him at some point.
Yeah,
I was instead of cutting out Batman completely, you could have at least gotten that far.
Something.
But like you said, Mike, there's still time.
There's still time.
Yeah.
Now, to answer your question, last 2 episodes, one thing I do want is after Oz gets it all, I want him to at least go back to the Iceberg Lounge. I don't want him to give that up because I feel like being a kingpin, yes, he has the money, but he also, I feel like part of what he wants is the authority, the fame, the recognition, and part of that is having like a public face as well. I watched the first episode of The Sopranos, and like this, he was seeing the psychiatrist. He goes to this restaurant. She's on a date with some guy. He made a reservation, but there was like 5 tables ahead of him. Regardless, Tony comes in. Oh, says, hey, you really helped me out a lot. He goes and sits down, and the guy's like, what? She's like, dude, shut up. But then you look over, and Tony like points at the 2 of them. They're like, they come up to him and say, hey, sir, they're getting your table ready right now. And the guy she was with was like, whoa, like, who is this guy that he just snapped his fingers and they get my table ready when 2 seconds ago they said they couldn't. So I feel like Oz, I don't think a whole lot of people like generally in Gotham know who he is or everything, but he wants to have that. He's driving that purple Lamborghini already. He already had that or plum, my bad, and that purple suit. So I feel like with the top hat, going in with his outfit, I'm going out, I'm high class now. The Maronis, they're out, they're high class, they're living it up. Sophie and him went to that restaurant. So I think I want to go back to Iceberg Lounge and have that taste of the high class in society of like, I'm not just a driver anymore,
Yeah.
So I at least want that. I don't want them to cut out the Iceberg Lounge aspect completely.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the monocle or any of that, but I at least want him to step out into the public and say, hey, look, Oz Cobb is here,
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The monocle, I could do without, but the top hat, that's crazy. I can't. I never really look at like titles. I should start doing that.
Because I think honestly, it could be a way for him to honor his mom, give her what he told her he was going to get her out, get her a nice house, and then if she dies, which we said she probably will, that might be his way of, all right, Ma, like I'm sorry I couldn't do it for you, but I'm doing it. Like the Cobb family, we're living on. We're going to make a name. I'm going to make a name for us in the city, and I think that's probably where it might slip in. So.
Yeah. I want them to kind of not close the story, but I want to figure out what happened to his family, like his brothers and his dad, because they keep talking about that every episode, so you could tell it's like something important. Because it's obviously something that shaped him into who he is, and it might not be something until episode 8. Like the final episode, but I really want them to tie that up because he keeps bringing them up, and you could tell like he thinks about them constantly. You can tell Oz is a family guy, so the fact that his mom's the only one left is kind of tough for him.
Right. Yeah.
What about you, Mike?
I don't want it to be too open-ended. Like, I understand this is leading into the second one, but I hope it kind of ties up because they're not supposed to do a season 2, so I hope they kind of tie this kind of space of the story up and not leave it too open. I just want to see those stories and those loose ends and those questions get answered. Like, I definitely want to see his brothers, what happened when he was little and all that stuff. Like, I feel like we need to see some of that. I don't know how they'll fit it in, but I mean they're crafty enough.
They're good at these little flashbacks to start the episode. You just need a 5-minute flashback.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need a whole episode on it,
Yeah.
but we need just something to actually see and understand.
Now, do
But-
you think with that, because about his brothers,
Yeah.
he said the city took him, he said, I wasn't strong enough. So do you think that maybe his foot got damaged in the incident with his brothers, or do you think it was just he was just born that way?
I didn't think about that.
I was trying to say my
never thought about
brothers,
that.
they jacked me up, my foot, got damaged or jacked up, and so I wasn't strong enough. So I think they could go either way, because we hadn't
Yeah.
talked about that. What exactly did he mean that I wasn't strong enough?
And he has face
Yeah.
scars too.
He does.
Yeah, it's a whole lot. Like I haven't, and again, like I don't really have the lore from reading the comics on the Penguin himself, so I don't really know too much about his backstory. So that's why I'm like,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
want to find out what's happening, because he brings them up every episode.
Mhm.
It's something clearly that the story is going to reveal, but it's just when
Right.
that happens.
Yeah. I don't know too much about his backstory either, but
I just know, all I know is that in the comics, his last name is Cobblepot.
right.
Mhm.
And his family does come from money, not as much as like Bruce Wayne's family, but his family comes from money, and he has beef with Bruce Wayne for some reason. Now, obviously, he becomes the Penguin and hates Batman. So maybe
Yeah,
like an Arrow in DC, like in CW, they call it Starling City, and then at some point they change it to Star City, like it is in the comics. So maybe if
right,
he gets
right.
the money and influence, he changes his name to Cobblepot to get more respect.
It does sound a little more high class.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we just. I'm loving this mobster, humble beginnings kind of story that they're doing.
Yeah.
But maybe
Mhm.
legally they might not have a way to prove it. But Bruce is at a party and Oz is there, and he's like, "Whoa, like, what are you doing here?" He's like, "What are you talking about? I'm the newest philanthropist in Gotham. Like, I'm doing all this stuff." And Bruce is like, "Yeah, something's not right there." I mean, who knows? Great or little thing. I mean, that sounds like in Top Hat. That sounds like something that they could do.
Yeah.
But I just know 4 days till Sunday, man. That's all I got for sure.
No,
Just
for
4 days till
sure.
Sunday.
For sure. I'm also hoping, like, even though I hope they tie the story up and not leave loose ends, I do kind of want something, if it makes sense, that kind of hints to what the possible plot, and maybe this is what the whole show is, but a possible plot line for the movie, for the Batman. I know we speculated what the plot will be, but I wonder if there's something little, like maybe even at the end, like it carries on, like, okay, this story is over, but this little moment kind of marks the beginning of what could happen in the movie. I think that'd be cool if it's done tastefully. You don't need to do anything too much, but yeah.
I mean, I feel like maybe, I don't know. I mean, I think that's a great possibility, because you're introducing this new drug. They introduce drops in the Batman. This whole the major plot point of the show is this drug that's going to revolutionize the game, and then you can't just have it be some small thing in the Batman Part 2. Like, where are all these drugs coming from? Maybe somebody weaponizes it in some way. But because I know Corny and I, while we were waiting for you to jump back on, we talked about a little bit about Game of Thrones and the ending feeling rushed.
Yeah.
But they 8 episodes, they've been killing it so far.
Mhm.
I highly doubt that they're going to drop the ball at the very end. And if it's supposed to set up, if it's not just a show and it's supposed to set up the Batman Part 2, I think they definitely have a solid plan of how this show is going to end. And I think you got some good ideas.
And honestly, it might sound like I'm giving them a little bit of a crutch, but even if they do mess up this last 2 episodes, they have a whole movie where they can kind of clean it up. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, hey, I didn't think about that.
The movie is direct. This show is going to lead directly into the movie, so they can end it how they want, I feel like, and kind of get some feedback from the fans. And if the fans are like, they rushed it, or they didn't do enough, or they could just do a quick rewrite for the first, couple scenes of the movie and kind of, nip that in the bud. So as much as I have faith that they're not going to mess these 2 up, they have a little bit of wiggle room at the end of the day too, because
that is true.
It's going to lead right into the movie. So look, they've been 6 out of 6 for me. I have no reason to doubt them.
Yep.
You know, coming this next Sunday to the following week. So I'm just along for the ride, bro.
Yep. I haven't.
Now, would you rather have them still space it out, or would you rather have them drop the last 2 episodes at once? It's like it's the big finale, last 2 episodes. Let's just plow through
Space.
space. Okay,
Yeah.
It's
Still
painful.
space.
It's painful, but let's space it.
Okay. All right.
It's. I want to see it all at once. I like that, but I'm also like, man, let's let it simmer. Let's let it sit. Let us want and yearn for that last episode.
Yeah, I like the space too. I mean, we already here, man. I could wait another week.
Yep.
Hey, that's true. It's been a month and a half, you know.
Right.
All right. Well, we got 2 more episodes left, boys. I think all 3 of us, will be locked in on Sunday at
Absolutely.
9 on Max or HBO if you still have that channel on cable. If you still have cable, I don't know who does, but we all gonna be locked in on this. The ending last 2 episodes of The Penguin, which I'm sure it's just not gonna disappoint. There's just no way. There's just no way. Any last thoughts, boys? Any last thoughts beyond that?
I'm looking forward to it. You know, Penguin's been great. Matt Reeves, a big fan. Looking forward. Like I said, the only regret I have is that we still have to wait an entire year for the Batman Part 2. But
yeah,
I think this will be enough to hold me over with the theories and the speculation. So I'm there no matter what.
Yep.
And it's gonna be great.
Yes, sir.
Happy, man. Just ready for Sunday.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, boys. To everybody else, thank you for listening. And we're going to talk to y'all next week, and we're going to keep this thing going. Y'all be easy out here. See y'all soon. Peace. Once again, thank y'all so much for joining me today on the Real Table Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and even comment. I want to hear your thoughts, and I want to hear your opinions. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at The Real Table Pod and on Twitter at The Real Table. And don't forget to also check me out on therealtable.com for news, articles, and reviews. I will see y'all soon. Peace.